Imagine this. You've got one of the biggest countries in Europe, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. And then in a single year, 1772, almost a third of it just vanishes.
Right. And it's not like it was lost in some huge epic war. It was just dismantled, carved up by its neighbors.
It's known as the first partition of Poland. So today we're going to unpack exactly how that happened.
Yeah, we'll look at what made Poland so vulnerable and then, the motives of the three empires that just swooped in: Russia, Prussia, and Austria.
So the scene is the 18th century. Poland is massive on a map, but inside it's fragile.
Incredibly fragile. And it's surrounded by these three really powerful monarchies with modern professional armies. The official line was that they were just intervening to restore order.
But the real reason was just a land grab.
Exactly. They wanted land, taxpayers, and new soldiers for their armies.
Yeah.
It was pure geopolitical theft.
Okay, let's get to the root of it. The Polish government itself, it seems like it was a disaster just waiting to happen, starting with the kings.
They didn't have a hereditary monarchy like, say, England or France, where the crown just passes from father to son.
They had what's called an elective monarchy.
That's the key. Every time a king died, the most powerful nobles would all get together and vote for the next one.
Which sounds kind of democratic, but it wasn't.
Not at all. It was basically a permanent invitation for other countries to meddle in their affairs.
So how did that actually work? How did it lead to foreign control?
Well, the nobles themselves were really divided and, frankly, pretty easy to corrupt. So a country like Russia figured out pretty quickly it was cheaper to just bribe a few powerful families to vote for a king who was secretly loyal to them.
So the guy on the Polish throne was often just a puppet.
A puppet taking orders from Empress Catherine the Great in Saint Petersburg.
Yeah, so the executive branch is compromised. But the parliament, their legislature was, it was even worse.
Oh, it was a mess. It's because of this one single, deeply destructive rule called the liberum veto.
And this is just, it's mind-boggling.
It really is. Yeah. In their parliament, the Sejm, they had a rule where any single member, one person out of hundreds, could stand up and stop a law from passing.
And it was worse than just stopping one law, wasn't it?
So much worse. If one nobleman used the liberum veto, it didn't just block, say, a tax bill. It instantly canceled the entire meeting.
The whole session.
Entire session. Everything they'd been working on for months was just gone, wiped clean, as if it never happened.
Just try to imagine running a country like that. Your treasury is empty, your neighbors are building huge armies, you get 99% of your parliament to agree on a plan to raise money and build an army.
And one guy, maybe a guy who just got a big bag of gold from a foreign ambassador, stands up, says, "I object," and boom, it's all over.
The result was just total paralysis. For decades, Poland couldn't raise enough money for its government, let alone pay for an army big enough to defend itself.
By 1772, it was defenseless, divided, and just. The perfect target.
So this internal weakness creates a vacuum. Let's look at the three powers who rushed in to fill it. We should probably start with Russia.
Yeah, Russia was definitely the ringleader here. Catherine the Great saw Poland as a buffer zone, a client state. She just wanted to keep Russian influence there and make sure Poland never got strong enough to be a threat.
And when some Polish nobles actually tried to fight back against that influence?
The Bar Confederation, yes.
Catherine didn't just write a strongly worded letter.
No, she sent in the Russian army and just crushed them. It was a clear message about who was really in charge.
And in the partition, Russia got a huge piece of the pie.
A massive piece, about 35,000 square miles of eastern Poland. Very rich farmland. It really cemented Russia as the dominant power in all of Eastern Europe.
Okay, next up is Prussia. And its king, Frederick II, he was really the mastermind behind the whole partition plan.
He was, and his motive was almost purely practical. It was geographical. If you look at a map of Prussia back then, it was split into two separate pieces.
Right, Brandenburg and East Prussia.
And Frederick hated that. He just wanted to connect his kingdom. He needed a geographical fix. So his goal was to seize the land in between, which was called Royal Prussia.
He was also the key diplomat, wasn't he? He's the one who sold the idea to the others.
Absolutely. He was clever. He knew that if Russia just took a huge piece of Poland for itself, Austria would panic, and it could lead to a bigger war.
So he framed the partition as a way to keep the peace.
Exactly. He convinced Russia and Austria that carving up Poland was actually a way to prevent a war among themselves, a way to maintain the balance of power.
And Prussia's gain, it was smaller in size, but strategically vital.
The most vital, arguably. They got Royal Prussia, which gave them control over the mouth of the Vistula River, That meant they controlled the entire region's grain trade. It unified the country and helped make Prussia a major military power.
And that brings us to the third partner, Austria, the reluctant one.
The reluctant participant, yes. Empress Maria Theresa. She genuinely seems to have had moral problems with it.
I've read she cried when she signed the treaty.
She did. She lamented taking land from another Catholic country. But her ministers, and especially her son, they were very pragmatic. They basically said, look, if Russia and Prussia get stronger and we get nothing, we will be weaker.
The balance of power argument again.
It's all it was. Tears or no tears, Austria couldn't afford to be left out of the deal.
So Austrian troops moved into southern Poland and secured a region called Galicia. What did they get out of it?
They got about 32,000 square miles. And this territory was heavily populated, which meant a huge new tax base. Plus, it contained these incredibly valuable salt mines.
Ah, so a direct source of revenue.
A huge one. And that money went straight into funding the Austrian state and military.
So the deal is done, the land is divided up, but they needed to make it look official.
Right, you can't just invade. You need paperwork. That was the Treaty of Saint Petersburg, signed in August 1772. It laid out all the new borders.
But then came the most cynical part. They force the Polish parliament, the Sejm, to actually vote to approve the treaty.
To legitimize their own dismemberment. It was just unbelievable. Imagine being a Polish representative called to vote on this. You show up, and there are Russian and Prussian soldiers standing right outside the building.
Making it very clear what happens if you vote no.
The pressure was enormous.
Yeah.
And most of them did vote yes, under duress. But a few refused. The most famous is Tadeusz Richtan.
What did he do?
He literally laid down in the doorway of the chamber to physically block the other members from going in to vote. He was shouting that they were betraying their country. It was this incredible dramatic act of protest.
But it didn't work.
It didn't work. The vote went through.
And the scale of the loss is it's staggering.
Poland lost about 30% of its land and a third of its population in a single year without a major war.
And it wasn't just any land. Prussia took control of their access to the sea. Austria got the salt mines. Russia got the huge farmlands.
The Polish state that was left was now completely landlocked and totally surrounded by the three powers that had just carved it up.
So what did this mean for the actual people on the ground? The ones who went to bed one night in Poland and woke up the next day in Prussia or Austria.
Life changed fast.
Mm-hmm.
In the Prussian part, for example, they started a process of Germanization right away. German became the language in schools and government.
And in the Russian part,
the focus was more on religious and political control. Russia boosted the Orthodox Church and suppressed the Polish Catholic Church, which was a huge symbol of Polish identity.
And Austria.
Austria was very efficient.
They sent in a whole new bureaucracy to govern Galicia and focused on collecting taxes. Ironically, in some of the most chaotic parts of Old Poland, the new rulers did bring some stability. Better roads, more organized schools.
But you're still a second-class citizen in your own home.
Exactly. And that feeling of injustice. It actually lit a fire under the remaining Polish elite. It was a wake-up call.
So this shock actually sparked a reform movement.
A powerful one. Polish leaders finally realized, we have to fix our broken government or we're going to disappear completely. So what did they try to do?
They finally got serious. They worked to abolish the liberum veto. They wanted to build a real professional army. And most importantly, they drafted a new constitution to make the monarchy work properly. It was a desperate race against time.
And the rest of Europe was just watching this happen.
They were. And the big takeaway for them was that the three Eastern powers, Russia, Prussia, Austria, could now work together to redraw the map of Europe by force.
And the other big players like France and Great Britain, they didn't step in.
They were too busy with their own problems, including, the tensions leading up to the American Revolution. Their silence was basically a green light. It showed that the balance of power had shifted east.
So 1772 was a major turning point, but it wasn't the end of the story.
No. That's what you really have to understand. The first partition wasn't the end. It was a successful dress rehearsal.
Because it worked so well for them.
It worked so well. And because Poland was trying so hard to reform itself after that shock, which threatened the empires, they came back for more.
2 more partitions, in 1793 and 1795.
And those two finished the job. Poland was completely wiped off the map of Europe. It ceased to exist as a country for 123 years until after World War I.
The lesson here seems pretty profound. Military strength is obviously vital for a country's survival, but internal political unity is maybe even more so.
It is. Political dysfunction, especially the kind that can be exploited by outsiders, is just a direct path to disaster.
Now that you know how easily three powerful neighbors agreed to carve up a large but weak nation, consider this. What single deeply divisive political issue in a major country today, if it's never resolved, could create the kind of weak spot that powerful rivals might one day look to exploit?
See you next time.